Because I'm not sure everyone's read it 100% the way through.
Did you see?
Do you guys, and you may not feel ready, but do you guys feel ready to vote on this tonight, or do you want to see how the room goes?
Well, good. Yeah. Right now,
Okay.
based on, unless it's a left curve. Left.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask again, but I just wanted to staff.
Might have missed this one, Eric. Oh, I missed one. I think you might have missed that one. Looks like it. Another one. Another one.
Oh, sometimes that's mud.
I guess,
Well,
you might not have gotten these, the first ones I did, I wasn't. Guess I didn't know there were two places.
Good to go?
Those ones look good. Yeah. Same here. Yeah. Lots of paper. Paperless society.
Hasn't really worked out though. Yes, that's, have a sign, we had a sign sheet. Excuse my not notice. It's been quite a day. All right. Oh. If he comes back, we will.
I could get it at a very common, I didn't know.
Shall we call ourselves to order? Good. Okay,
We shall.
so the select board is going to call ourselves to order. Thank you. So first thing we will do is review the agenda, and we have public comment first at 5:05. And then our general business, which tonight is one topic to discuss the new proposed Lake Wyola Advisory Committee charge. So first, let's see, does anybody have public comment not related to the agenda item? Please raise your hand if you're online, and if you're in the room, also use your raised hand feature. If there's any public comment separate from our agenda. Okay. All right. So the first thing I thought we could do is read first the Lake Advisory Committee new updated charge that was worked on after our meeting the last time. Haley and Brennan, with the minutes Brennan took, put together an updated version and incorporated some of the comments and has presented the select board with a new version of the committee. So I'm going to read it, going through it first, and then we'll discuss and take public comment. That sound good to you, Eric and
Yes.
Jim?
Yep.
All right. So, Lake Wyola Advisory Committee, also known as LWAC. Purpose and mission. The Lake Wyola Advisory Committee is established as a permanent standing advisory committee to the Shutesbury Select Board. The mission of the Lake Advisory Committee is to serve as an advisory body regarding the preservation, safety, maintenance, and enhancement of Lake Wyola as a vital resource and recreational resource for the town of Shutesbury. Scope of authority and function. As an advisory body, the LWAC has no regulatory enforcement or independent budgetary authority. Its primary functions include infrastructure and safety advisory, providing tracking, oversight, and advisory support regarding the safety, operations, and long-term maintenance of Lake Wyola Dam, the Locks Pond Road Culvert, and related watershed infrastructure, environmental and water quality monitoring, collaborating with the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission to monitor water quality, combat invasive species such as milfoil, and mitigate stormwater erosion and runoff. Public education, developing and distributing educational materials to watershed residents regarding proper septic maintenance, safety, and pollution prevention, as long as educating the public on environmental, as well as, educating the public on environmental and safety issues. Recreational and economic interests, collaborating with the Recreation Committee and local stakeholders to advise the Select Board on balancing multi-use recreational demands, enhancing public access, and evaluating sustainable local economic opportunities that align with long-term environmental protection of the watershed. Operations and community engagement. Joint committee meetings to ensure a unified approach to watershed protection and to maximize the town's eligibility for state and federal grants. The LWAC shall schedule routine joint meetings with the Stormwater Management and Implementation Committee to address overlapping environmental jurisdictions and share public input. Routine public feedback sessions in fulfilling its role as a liaison between the town and lake community. The LWAC shall convene open, dedicated public listening sessions at least biannually, once in the summer and once in the winter. These specific sessions will allow residents to comment and ask questions independent of regularly scheduled meetings. Following the listening sessions, the committee will present the information to the Select Board and offer recommendations as needed. Membership and composition. The LWAC shall consist of 11 voting members. The composition shall be balanced into 3 distinct functional blocks. Town board representatives will hold at least 4 seats, 1 member of the planning board, 1 member of the Conservation Commission, 1 member of the Recreation Committee, and 1 member of the Board of Health. Staff seats will consist of 2, the Shrewsbury Dam Keeper, ex officio, an emergency management director or his or her designee, also ex officio. Community residents will hold 7 seats. 3 will be residents or property owners within the lake watershed area, appointment to represent the geographic interests of the neighborhood. 3 will be at-large community members and 1 non-resident community member. Terms of appointment authority. All appointments to the LWAC should be made solely by the Select Board through the town's standardized application process. No private third-party entity or nonprofit organization may directly appoint or designate members in this municipal community. Conflict of interest protections. To maintain public interest and satisfy Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, the LWAC must operate with strict independence from any private nonprofit entity. While members of the private organizations such as Wyola Association are welcome to apply as independent town residents, no more than 1 voting member of the LWAC may simultaneously serve as officers or directors on a governing board of any private lake-related 501c3 nonprofit organization. Any member holding dual roles must proactively file a disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest with the Select Board and must fully recuse themselves from discussing or voting on any town matter that directly or substantially impacts the financial or legal interest of said private organization. So that was the revised charge that we drafted from the meeting that we had. Eric and Jim, do you have any questions before we open it to public comment or any comments?
No, I don't.
I didn't even notice that.
Nope, same here. This is basically the outcome from our last meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks
Looks good.
good.
Okay.
Yep.
Get the sign-in sheet?
Huh?
Do you want me to get the sign-in?
Yeah, that'll work out good. Although I'm not 100% sure names and faces, but we'll work that through.
Did anyone who wants to make a public comment sign up on the sheet? Or pull it away?
Thank you, Brendan, for putting that down.
Did you see that? And we actually vote tonight for performance of Jen, that's Scott's it.
Mhm.
That means we can vote
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so you have 5 people in the room
Okay,
who want to make a public comment.
okay. And anyone online want to make a public comment? Can you just raise your hand now and we'll work through you? All right. So we'll go with the ones here. You want this? Yes, I'll work off that.
Should they sit in this chair?
Yes. So in an effort, we are trying out a different system of making sure people online can hear the recording. So we ask people who make comments to sit for right now in this seat near the microphone so that those online can hear as well as in the room. So Charlene, would you like to come up first and make a public comment? Thank you.
Thank you. Sherilyn Galinsky, 4 Wyola Drive. Just if, I just need clarification. I know at the previous session, there was quite a bit of discussion about the Lake Wyola Association. And looking at the community residents, there's no exclusion of the Lake Wyola Association members by way of what you've written, correct? I'm just confused.
That's correct. So even in the original copy from the first meeting,
Yeah.
Lake Wyola Association members were always welcome to apply. It was just people who are on the board of directors that was limited. But just being a member in and of itself did not preclude you from applying to be on the committee.
So that's what your the last.
That's what the conflict of interest.
So if you're
Statute. Yep.
the president, first vice president, second vice president, clerk, or, well, those are the executive board. You could never have 2 of those people on this particular, okay, so that clarifies that. Because my concern was that we have about probably 40% of the people who live either on the lake or around the lake that belong to the Lake Wyola Association. And if you're having a very, very limited amount of people on it because they happen to have joined, which helps pay for those roads that we've been hearing so much about, that sounds exclusionary and more concerning than anything to me as a resident. So you could have up to 3 people from the Lake Wyola Association with that first bullet, correct? Under community residents, 7 seats.
If they were a resident or a property owner within the watershed, yes, and also happened to be a member, correct.
Okay.
That would bar them.
And then the 3 at large means they don't live around the lake?
That means at large, so anyone in the community could apply to be a part of the board or the committee.
Including
It could others.
like people too? Oh, okay. And then a non-resident, like someone from another whole town could apply?
So in a lot of towns, like communities on Cape Cod, they have very similar issues to what we experience. Well, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but they have similar dynamics to what we experience here. And what some communities on the Cape, like I think Chatham and Dennis come to mind. If you don't live in town, but you own a second house and
So you have to have some ownership of some type. It can't be just some random person.
no, we were certain.
Wow, that's really stretching it.
Maybe that's the community, the word community
Yeah,
in that,
or non-resident is what,
yeah.
okay. So my concern is just, and I've looked online a lot and I know everything you've written is completely by the books. So thank you for doing that. But my only concern is so many people who live on the lake are so aware of the lake's everyday functions. And that hopefully when you're selecting these people, you'll pick people who have that knowledge background because, you know, I'm serious when I say this. If you pick 3 at-large people who have no interest in the lake but would like to be on this committee, they may not even know there's a dam on the lake. And obviously that's a huge part of this committee. So I'm sure you'll use good judgment on selecting people for the committee, which is more than important. And what is your reason for not allowing the dam keeper and I forgot what the other position was.
Emergency Management Director.
Yeah, why can't they vote?
At a previous select board meeting, the select board adopted a policy on employees on committees. And so the town has categorized employee membership on committees into three categories. So one is like a direct expertise, like we would want the library director to vote on the library building use committee because that is going to have a direct impact over the operations of the library. For advisory committees like Lake Wyola Association, or even in my capacity as town administrator, I serve as an advisor to the finance committee, to the select board, the personnel board, and the capital planning committee. And municipal best practice would dictate that you don't allow those staff to vote on those committees because it has a direct impact on their work, their working relationships, certainly financial and legal matters. So this is consistent with the town's policy that was recently adopted and with municipal best practice. And then the third category of employees on committees would be somebody who say, works for the town, but is interested in being on the recreation committee. But maybe they work as the town treasurer and their job is not directly related to the recreation committee. They just live in town and want to be a part of it. And so that person can vote, but they have to file a disclosure with our town clerk's office.
So these people couldn't do that? They couldn't file a disclosure if it came to
Yeah,
some
so work is an
situation?
It's in an advisory capacity. They're appointed to this committee because of their positions within the town. And so they're serving as advisors and consistent with our current practice and policy. We don't allow those staff to vote.
And not just advisors, paid advisors, right? Isn't that part of it?
Yes, they are paid employees of the town.
Paid to come to these meetings as well? Are they paid to come to these meetings?
So it would be
It's part of their
consistent.
job description.
Yeah, part of the job description is to attend meetings. So I don't know that you could put like a per meeting cost on it, but yes, that is certainly an expectation, of our emergency management director that he would attend those meetings.
That, oh,
For example, of yourself, I'm an advisory role on a number of different committees, including the select, board, working here with the select board every meeting.
Yeah.
She doesn't vote.
I get it. And I'm just, putting this out here again that, the people on the lake who seem to know the lake really well. I mean, I've been watching the lake this week. I happened to be home 3 or 4 days and the activity there is slim to none, during the week. And sometimes you hear people say that, it's different than that. And unless you really are there seeing it, you're just going by hearsay. And certainly we wouldn't want hearsay to dictate important decisions.
And I think too, that's, part of what I tried to do in this updated draft is to incorporate those public feedback sessions. Because I do think we need to hear directly from residents, and that's a perfect opportunity to have that direct earpiece of, we want to hear summer and winter, I think is reasonable expectation for public listening sessions. You can hear for a wide variety of issues, and then the board would be expected to report back to the select board on that. So I think that's a really vital closing the loop communication piece.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlene.
You're welcome.
Nick,
Excuse me, can you take that screen down, please? I'd like to see who's speaking.
oh, sorry, Brennan, thank you. Okay, Tom Seifert.
Oh.
Please come down.
Am I bidding? Thanks so much as always for accepting our comments, for putting this meeting together. If I start going too long, please just tell me to put it in writing or something. My first comments were just on a few choices of words in the charge where it talks about the primary functions and what they include. And I just wanted to suggest under infrastructure and safety advisory, it might be changed to infrastructure and safety advising, because advising is a function, but advisory I don't read as much as a function. And then where it says recreation and economic interests, I wanted to suggest perhaps instead of interests, the word development, because that's more of a functional word, or something like developing. On the first page, under the fourth bullet, maybe something like developing recreational and economic interests, or just recreational and economic development was a suggestion. And as far as words, on the next page under the routine public feedback sessions, I wanted to suggest eliminating the first clause of, or the first, perhaps it's a clause of the first sentence, in fulfilling its role as a liaison between the town and the lake community. And instead just starting this portion with the LWAC shall convene. Since it's already in a section labeled operations and community engagement, we know already it's about engagement. And I don't understand exactly what the lake community would be defined as. And I was hoping that the lake community was actually the public, because it's a public lake and it's Shutesbury. So I thought one way around that was just to eliminate that first phrase. It's a suggestion, please. And then on the last page, please, where it says, members of private organizations are welcome to apply as independent town citizens. The word citizen in our culture is more and more charged. And so I wondered if we might just say as independent community members instead of town citizens, or as independent town residents maybe, but something to avoid that charged word citizen in our current culture. More perhaps substantively, please, I wanted to ask about the joint committee meetings with the Stormwater Management and Implementation Committee. It says that on the very bottom of the first page, the LWAC shall schedule routine joint meetings with the SMIC. And I wanted to suggest something a little more specific about perhaps after routine or parentheses, at least X number of times a year, in a similar way to the public feedback sessions being conducted at least biannually. Just to get a better idea of what that routine would look like in real life. Would it be once a year, once a season, or something of that nature, please? And yes, under the membership composition, please, where there are 3 residents or property owners within the Lake Wyola watershed, I have a request, please, if possible, to reference what the definition of the Lake Wyola watershed is. I know that FERCog has offered a map that includes that, and I believe it's a known geographic area, but I wasn't sure if maybe one map would say one thing and another map would say another thing. So if we just had a solid reference, perhaps for what the watershed is, please. And the last 2 points, please, I wanted to ask about is whether there would be any mention of what the length of a term would be for a member on the committee. Would they be yearly or longer than that? And whether there would be any term limits relevant to this committee or not. But just mentioning that somewhere. Those are all of my notes. And again, thank you very much. I hope that was clear what I just said. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I can just touch on
Go ahead.
the term limits. I actually dropped that from the initial proposal because we don't do that for any other committee. And it's not to say that we couldn't start, but I figured make it consistent, at least if we haven't implemented some broader metric. Even without my glasses, I can see Michael has his hand up, but so that was why I had taken it away, is the thought that we're not currently doing it and it's consistent with our other practices. And then, wording, and it's up to you, to the board. But in terms of a Lake Wyola watershed definition, I think there's a couple ways you could do it. You could look at a scientific, but I think in this case, I think it would be sufficient to say there's a colloquial definition of what the Lake Wyola watershed is. I think, it's one of those things where I think if you ask people, they would know, just kind of intuitively, but you could certainly specify more if you felt the need to do that.
Map. I know there's one around. Seen it? Yeah, that's not it.
Make sure you understand something you said on the term limits.
Oh, well, it wasn't really term limits in the first one, but I had staggered terms, but we
Yeah.
don't do that on any other committee, really.
We do.
FinCom,
Yeah, yeah, we do. Finance committee, the finance, they're three.
but not
But you did
for,
prevent you for coming
but
back.
does that apply for like other committees that are more like akin to this one?
Those are the only two I can think of.
Because finance
Which
committee
two?
carries a different,
Huh?
that's
Personnel and FinCom
Yeah.
have a three-term,
Yeah, and the
three-year,
three-year appointments.
three-year appointments with a limit of 3 terms. And you take a break, and if you want to come back, you can come back.
I guess one question or concern would be that you saw lock out people possibly from joining over time and sometimes people,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
That's-
interesting.
hmm?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, just locking in people into a role indefinitely. I don't know. I have a question on that or concern about an indefinite term. When, even from the select board is making these appointments and might find
Right.
that there's some issues.
Yeah.
The
we-
current membership, and you might have somebody with some really good expertise that wants to get on. So I'm thinking the situations that how do you facilitate that
So
if you lock in,
thinking
if you
back,
lock in
yeah.
terms?
So thinking back in the couple of situations where we have had, the select board chose not to reappoint that person when there was an issue. Because appointments are up to the
Yeah,
select.
okay, so maybe
Can decide not to appoint someone to a committee
but there's reappointment, but there's not.
and reappoint.
In here, there's no reappointment.
well, we naturally, as a course of our municipal operations, every year, we do have an annual list of appointments. So that's what Melissa's talking about. So it could be through that, if you
Okay.
were to say, oh, this person served on this committee for a decade and maybe someone else is really interested and they want to serve. So that's an avenue,
So we do have an avenue in place.
or you can do.
We have, I think the avenue's been used more so when there was an issue with a committee member on a committee. Not sure that we've used it in the way that you have. We don't get many volunteers. We have a hard time getting volunteers. So,
Definitely got questions behind you.
no, I know. We'll get to you, just talking.
Yeah.
So we struggle to get volunteers for committees.
But there's three phases, groups of volunteers. Some might
Yeah.
be more, there might be more demand or more interest in some of these than others.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And certainly out of the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
so I think on a mechanism that you can make changes.
right.
And I think you mentioned one way.
There is one way.
I'd just be concerned about you locking in, people are locked in indefinite.
Yeah, I can see a benefit. I think FinCom has it that way. So if there's new people that come on and then new thoughts and new, right?
Yeah.
And then many in our current environment have come back on. Like the personnel board, same
Sometimes
thing.
initial
you know,
appointments don't
but-
work out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's true, but you also have to think, what you do for one, you should be looking at across the board. So would that be the same thing for like recreation or,
right.
or a web committee?
Council on Aging.
If it,
have
because
things
it
there.
truly is hard to get volunteers, but maybe, yeah, you may want to take,
But as the select board, we can say we're looking to have some new people join this committee for XYZ reason, right?
yeah, we
So
could,
we do have that option as a select board.
maybe we could put a disclaimer as part of the thing that, committee reappointments are subject to select board approval, and that might help you.
yeah,
Yeah, I think something like that would be
Yeah.
okay. I'd be okay with that because it
Yeah.
has sort of established it.
Yeah.
You could have changes.
even though that's
Not
That under
scary.
terms
that mechanism is there, maybe to have
terms of.
part of this.
Okay, flat questions, Muslim
So, yeah, let's just question. Yeah, let's question.
Oh my goodness, okay.
The concern that you're raising, it's important in terms of, I'm not interested in people and, normally I would say consistency is good, but I think in terms of committees, the level of interest and engagement, in Western Charlotte, there's a lot of people who are interested in this. compared to, sorry, the web committee, not so much, a lot of people hang up the web. So I think sort of understanding the dynamics, and I think just practical both them on the select board, but also the committees. The way it really works on the ground is the committee says, who among our members is interested in going forward, and then they put the names forward to the select board. So it's not like there's this open process here. Come June, the select board gets a list of names of people who are on the committee who are interested in going. And there's not really an opportunity for people who are not in the know to say, ooh, I really want to do that, because they don't know that.
Unless
June
there's
is gonna-
vacancy, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, thinking about a way of doing it, so FinCom, it's 3 terms for 3 years, that's a total of 9. You could do this for 5, which is, your site, there's just a sense of like, that the end is coming and you're bringing someone else along. So I think looking at it customized based on the nature of the committee and trying to solicit community input as community as opposed to, clearly, someone who's arrested is together by a committee, but you're not looking for community input in the same qualitative way. It's fine. So I think figuring out something, maybe the practical realities would be good.
Yeah, I'm regretting that I didn't add more to what I meant when I spoke about it. I was getting a little to what he just talked about, like, will there be a dynamic or a flow to the membership as needed and whatnot? So I guess my question might boil down to, are these 1-year appointments or intended to be 1-year long appointments on the committee? Because then every year there would be that opportunity for looking at the membership or advertising opportunities for membership. Do we know if they would be 1-year appointments?
That's how this was written, to be a 1-year appointment.
That's really the crux. Of what I just wanted to about.
Okay.
Thanks.
That would address.
Hi, just Jennifer Wallace, just wanted to say one, the Stormwater Management Committee has staggered membership, so we do have it. And Gil might want to speak to this too. I believe the way it's structured, and it wasn't on charge, that 2 members have 3-year terms. One member has, 2 members have 2-year terms and one has a 1-year term, and everybody rolls over to a 3-year term at some point. So Gail has structured this to see her hand is up, and she can speak up. It doesn't say the Stormwater Committee is one that has the needs.
Go ahead, Gail.
There are several committees that have a 3-year term as part of the definition. And with a new committee, as she just explained, you have them staggered so they don't just start at once and end at once. But otherwise, if it's not specified, it is simply a 1-year appointment. It comes up with that annual list of appointees that are brought to the select board, and they go through that list at that point, whether it's a new appointment or a reappointment. They're just annual, just in terms of that procedure, unless they are specified with a multi-year term and a term limit, as there are a couple of committees that have term limits. So.
Yeah.
I think what Gail's describing work, it's if there's no other definition out there, it's a 1-year
1-year.
renewable.
Good. I mean, we can always adjust. That's always an option. Because it is, like you said, finance committee, yes, but there are other committees like recreation where I don't think they have that. So it might be worth it to kind of look more broadly at that issue. But I think for tonight, you could certainly proceed this way. And if we, maybe over the course of time, you might think differently, but there's enough precedent, I think. That. What do you think here?
No, I think it's true. Excuse me, I think we could do it like it is here and assume they're 1-year appointments and
Yeah, by inference, it's 1-year.
it's 1 year.
As Gail described, that's just the way that
Yeah, some of them go.
committees are set up, unless otherwise defined.
Right. And I think those that are defined, I think those, Gail, correct me if I'm wrong, I think those other ones that are defined are usually by a bylaw of some sort, aren't they? With the 3-year terms? I think they're determined by a bylaw. We can't hear you. And you may not know the answer to this question. It's
You're on
it's
mute,
important,
Gail. Gail, you're on mute.
Thank you. I don't know about the bylaw.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
It's certainly in the charge, and if you look on the list of appointed officials, the term, the end year of the term and the length of the term are both cited. So in your annual list that's brought to the select board, you won't see the folks who are in the 3-year term and it's up 2 years hence. You'll see only the people whose either 1-year term or the 3-year term ends that year.
Are you looking?
Yes, I don't know if you want to go ahead while I just look.
Sure.
Thinking.
Yeah, I think committees work well with the 1-year term renewal every year. I know part of what we have done, or Haley at tasks that we have tasked her with, is to reach out to committees and who want to remain on the committee, and then any vacancies, we work from there. That's currently how our process goes
Yeah.
for 3 or 1 year.
And you
It's
don't
all-
necessarily,
Bylaws.
you know, let necessarily age out or term out. I mean, if somebody's really energetic and providing good value and they want to continue, what's wrong with something like that?
Right. Haley,
And
would you-
why limit them, at least initially, right?
Those are in the bylaws.
those ones that have okay. Howie?
Quick question. If, seeing I can't vote because I'm the dam keeper. If I was representing the Lake Wyola Association, would I be able to?
We wouldn't have a dam keeper. I would. Yeah,
Yeah, but I can't give an input.
well, you can certainly give an input, you know, when I go to personnel board or finance committee or capital planning meetings, I do, like, I talk, I give my professional opinion or here. It's just that I don't vote, which is, it actually was very strange to me when I came to this town because I had not really seen that in a lot of other communities. But notwithstanding, I think that our employees have a lot of knowledge and a lot of value. It's just about what is best practice.
An employee.
Well, I mean, technically speaking, yes, you do receive a stipend for being the dam keeper.
My health plan and vacation.
I know, right? I like my asserting authority.
You need to be on. it. Or
But
to-
up until now, I could vote. And it's just because I'm an employee that I can't. So how come? They're not, select board is not employees?
They're the select.
It's,
But you're
Well,
the,
no,
but you're
we're-
the appoint, but you're not on the.
We aren't going to be on this committee. None of us are.
Select board.
No, actually, that was, so to
That was
make,
the prior one.
to make space for additional community seats,
Yeah.
which is some of the feedback that we got last time.
We removed
No
it.
select board appointee for the LWAC, which kind of makes sense if there's the expectation that there's regular communication between the LWAC and the select board. If there had to be one kind of redundancy, that's where I thought, yeah, that made the most sense.
So Howie, this, as far as being an ex officio, you can give opinion and you can speak to things and you can advise them and tell the committee, this is what the dam keeper says what you should do. When it comes down to the vote, of a topic, that's when, as hard as it is the committee will get, those votes. And then, because you also, the one thing that the emergency management team is made up completely of employees and we all vote on that one, but that's a different type of committee. It's not a committee, it's really a
More of an operation.
operations team.
You know,
So,
like the library director example, that would be an operational need where you would expect that someone is making decisions for that capacity.
yeah.
Haley's a critical part of the select board meetings,
Mhm.
but she's not voting.
And we know she wants to.
Oh, I don't.
So it's not removing your ability to do that. It's just the vote piece. And there's been such a change in conflict of interest law and such that there's an area where we don't want to go into that because that causes ethics and conflict of interest and can
One
and
example.
not be beneficial.
One example you could think about would be, for example, if you're talking about, the LWAC wants to put emergency barricades all up around the lake, right? A crazy example. It's not a real example, but you wouldn't necessarily want your emergency management director voting on that matter because he would have a financial interest or an interest because of his position in the town. You can see how that might be a conflict. You want your municipal employees to be insulated from that kind of exposure, and the way that you do that is to make it ex officio. But it's, in a lot of ways, it might, feel like a less of a contribution, but I think it's still equally valued. I mean, I can only speak from my experience, but when I leave select board or personnel or finance committee meetings, I still feel like I made a meaningful contribution to the discussion. It's just that I'm not a voting member of that committee.
There's another side of that. That also means that no one holds you responsible for that vote.
Yeah, right.
On another side, of that. Let's see. So I think we called on everybody for that question.
Did we get everybody else here?
No, we haven't done Jennifer yet. Jennifer, do you want to come on up?
Only,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You have,
Question over here.
oh, I'm sorry.
Not acknowledged.
Oh, sorry.
Which is, we're not saying that not voting is not a recorded opinion in the record of the meeting.
I didn't catch the first part. What?
Not voting doesn't mean that the opinion of the dam keeper would not be in the minutes of the meeting.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, they'd be in the minutes. Oh, yeah.
Select-
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
just to go a little bit further.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Good question.
There's the meeting.
Yes,
Yes.
Jennifer, go.
Do you think it would be okay if I slid this around so my back isn't turned to everybody? Or I'll try to speak really loudly. I don't know if
We
it'll
can
be
hear
able-
you on the microphone.
You can, okay, good. All right,
Maybe on the side.
hi.
Turn it sideways. Sideways.
Turn this
Well,
sideways,
you sideways.
turn me sideways.
Semi-facing.
Oh, that's okay.
No?
I'll do my best here. Okay.
We're still working out our kinks.
Right. So anyway, I think this second draft is really effective. And I took a look at it from two angles. One was just structurally, does it mirror what other town committees, what their scopes look like? How they're set up, their job to be advisory to the select board. And I felt like it certainly mirrors my committee's charge. The second was, does the scope, the new component of community engagement, the criteria for membership serve the mission as it's outlined here? And I can see no way that we wouldn't be able to say that it serves the mission really well, especially with the additions that you've all made. On membership, which I know has been a sticky wicket as a committee chair myself, there is a member on our committee who doesn't know anything about stormwater, and he doesn't know anything about Lake Wyola. In fact, we took him to Lake Wyola for one of the first times and showed him the sites that FERCog has, that the engineers have identified. And he makes super valuable contributions because he's a systems thinker. I mean, that's his training. He's like an IT systems guy. And while, he would say, well, what does he know about Lake Wyola? In our conversations about, anything that we're doing, he has the best contributions. So I would say, is knowledge about what happens on the lake the only thing that's important to the makeup of this committee? So I cite that as an example that I think your membership criteria will serve the mission. I also think that the revision, when I think of this, I think, okay, the way this is structured, it looks to me like it will provide consistent, detailed, and very effective linkages between what happens on LWAC and the select board. And that didn't necessarily exist in full in a consistent way in the past. So I'm really excited about this charge. I do have a couple of questions, some of which Tom has covered too.
Okay.
In the section on water quality monitoring, monitor water quality, which is in the scope. I wonder if you'd consider, in FERCog's watershed-based plan, they have a list of specific water quality tests that they're recommending be done at Lake Wyola. It's a broad term. There's generalized understanding of what water quality testing might be, but their list is even more detailed than that broad understanding. So even if you put to monitor water quality according to FERCog's recommendations and the watershed-based plan, then there are definite benchmarks that they'd have to use. So it's, more specific. Similarly to specificity, I think this has to do with these terms like lake community or watershed, community members, community. We already see that community is defined differently by different people residing in different communities and sub-communities. So I don't know if it's town resident. I for sure don't know what geographic interest of the neighborhood means. Is a neighborhood smaller than a community? Is it smaller than a watershed? Is it bigger than a watershed? So we use these terms and they're understood naturally, variably, no fault there. It's just that what does it really mean? So I don't know how to make that more specific. And the geographic interest, same thing. Even I bring up the example of the other committee member who may or may not have any geographic interest, but he's a problem solver and that's of huge interest. So I just want to caution the select board about the use of these kind of terms and how fuzzy they really are. Other than that, way to go.
Thanks for that comment.
Good point. I think my thought in putting geographic interest was to tie it back to like the septic maintenance, like management and like those type of things that are more pronounced, like a localized thing, but or, if the board wants to make changes, you certainly can.
So how would we change that?
I'm thinking a different word, maybe geographic. Maybe so there's a different word. I think interest is good. And as Jennifer was talking, I put interest at that neighborhood of that neighborhood. But maybe the word that geographic instead of geographic, the regional doesn't make sense either because that's still geographic and just a differences. Yeah.
My understanding here, or the way I understood this, going along with appointed, is that so people will apply to be on the committee and then decisions are made based on those applications. And it looks like decisions will be made. People will be appointed if they represent geographic interests of the neighborhood or is it a broad, in other words, if this is about how you'll make your decisions, the criteria you'll use on the applications, then that needs to get tightened up. But I don't really know if it's about septic stuff, that's something different. That wouldn't relate so much to how you appoint people, right?
But one way to accomplish that goal would be to represent geographic interests we could just say area and put it under the environmental and water quality monitoring. And you could keep everything else of the watershed area up to the comma. Yeah, and then just move this to that. Okay, I think that makes a better, move it to a little tighter. Which place?
So environmental quality monitoring, collaborating with the Board of Health and the Concom to monitor water quality, combat invasive species, and mitigate erosion. And then how does this
whole could say something like, it might need a little wordsmithing, but something along the lines of hold the geographic interest.
See, what is the geographic?
Well, to me, in my mind, it's the geographic interest is mitigating
Yeah.
the stormwater. It's kind of like an umbrella thematic term for the.
Is it repeat?
Throw this out there, I mean, just is by inference or implication, just 3 residents within the watershed, doesn't that? Is that enough?
Not
Or is it?
Is that
Yeah.
enough? Do you really need
Yeah.
the geographic interest piece in there?
Not necessarily. It still
Um,
accomplishes the same goal.
Because by implication, inference, however you want to do it, that's, those 3 people are gonna be looking out for. They're from that area, they're gonna be looking out for those.
Theoretically, if they're interested to join.
To go, Haley, I think you've defined it in
Like
here
idea.
No,
without using those words already. I think it's defined I think it's defined in here in the function. More by example than the word geographic interest.
yeah.
It's already defined.
Or one other thing I just thought of, and shoot me down if you want, but it could be, representing the geographic interests of the Lake Wyola area by collaborating with and blah, blah, blah. So that it makes it clear that it's more of like the umbrella and each of those segments comes under that.
And you put that in the front here.
Michael has his hand raised.
Michael?
Where it says, just strike it.
Just strike it?
This is an example.
It's a great phrase, so I'm not.
There's, pizza there where you put some black people.
Mhm.
People can interpret that as a geographic interest. So how people interpret interests,
Right.
either magnanimous or not, and just taking it out because you're articulating all the other factors.
I mean, yeah, in your mission,
We can,
in the mission, it's advise the select board preservation, safety, maintenance, and enhancement. Those are the interests.
I think they're well defined, but, Haley, I think we might just strike it out. All right.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Sorry about that. Add it to your, maybe we can use it in another.
That's a good vocab phrase.
I mean, I understand the phrase, but then looking
Yeah.
at it, it's very well defined. You have defined it in that way. Take that off.
Another.
Yeah.
Or behind you, just.
Oh. Tom?
In support of what you just talked about, I think that would also add consistency because it's the only category that has that extra comma and then why this category, and then instead of just leaving us a list of 3. When it's struck, it just becomes more consistent, I think, for any resident. categories.
Right. Okay, Michael, you're up for your public comment.
Good part about going last is a lot of it's been covered. So I'll start by saying, I think this was excellent. And I'm assuming Haley did a lot of the work, but you all chimed in, but it's,
Some effort.
it was really a good next version after the discussion. I think it captures a lot and structured well. So I had a couple of really small things and then I think 1 or 2 substantive things. So just in the list of membership in my campaign to get rid of gender language, I would say we can just strike the his designee and just say or designee. Because we don't have to assume it's a he and we don't have to do that anyway. And then and I would agree. I mean, Tom's earlier point about citizens on the last page. I think the precision of language of saying town residents, town residents are a good thing, and we can talk about the town of Shutesbury. Those are sort of the 2 definitional things. Substantively, I think one thing that didn't get brought up in somewhere in here, there was a value of access and to the public. I mentioned this in the email to you all at some point, but I'm not sure how you put this in, but right now LWAC meets on Saturday mornings. You're looking at allowing hybrid meetings going forward. It seems like as an official town committee, unless there's some reason to do it differently, I think having public meetings in the normal time of like weekdays, which is when people do, because that allows more participation, both from the staff people, the other volunteers who are representing other committees, and then the public who might want to watch. So I don't know where you stick that in, but I think that'd be worth clarifying.
Maybe just push back a little bit. What about a committee coming up with when they want to meet?
Well, I think historically they have.
As opposed to saying when they have to meet.
Well, I'm not saying
Why
Tuesday.
not let the committee decide?
Um,
I'm
because,
just throwing this out.
yeah.
as a
well,
possible-
the committee has decided historically. And so it's Saturday mornings.
Yeah,
And I think, you know, what I found really interesting is, you know, in the last meeting, people were talking about how employees and other representatives from other committees were not showing up regularly. And, you know, if I go to 2 meetings a night, do I want to show up on a Saturday morning? I mean, I might go to a 3rd meeting a night like you guys do, but you know, like, you know, the weekends are there, you know, so I think it's just sort of the standardization of expectation, not just saying you can't do it. Like I'd say the listing meetings, weekends are really a smart time to do it because people are free. But just thinking about that.
I just think of my experience on committees. So we always get together and say, you know, everybody's got a different schedule,
Right.
different agenda or
Right.
whatever, and they work together to find something that meets.
I'm not sure we have to put anything in here.
Meets all of their mutual.
Because we
No,
don't.
I'm just sort of raising it as an issue because I think the history has been,
I understand.
yeah. And then I think the other big point that I made at the last meeting, which is mostly been addressed, but I think it gets to what Tom talked about in on the second page, the routine public feedback. Just reference to the lake community, like I would support scratching that whole first in fulfilling its role as liaison between the town and the lake community. You know, that it's about the select board and the town and people in the town. And the more we can get away from neighborhoods and lake interests and lake communities and having it more broadly, it shifts the perspective.
Make sure what.
Right here. It's that first after the bullet and fulfilling its role liaison in the lake community. I mean, lake community is mushy, but it's also, you want to hear from everybody. So, but other than that, I think it's great. So good job.
It's. Melissa?
Yes, oh, go ahead, sorry, Sharon.
Jacob, the free evidence. Is a moving by the watershed. And you're saying, and you know, is it what you're trying to say?
No, you're reminding me something, so keep talking.
So I just wondering what you.
He had stricken, he had taken out under routine public feedback session. Which is what Tom had suggested is the fulfilling its role as liaison between the town and the lake community. Just that one sentence
Correct.
or phrase, it was, it had a comma after,
Here,
it,
why
sorry.
Maybe I should just quickly run through some of the changes that it sounds like the board is comfortable
He
making.
wanted to make
Right,
it
one more.
quick and then, yeah.
Charlene just reminded me one more thing. Just, I think both Tom and Jen talked about trying to define the watershed, which I totally support the concept of the watershed. I think I raised that last time. But as an example, so on the planning board, we've got 4 zoning districts. One of them was Lake Wyola. And so in the last month, I was looking to see like which roads and addresses are actually in the Lake Wyola district. It's a little surprising what's in and what's not in. I don't know, you know, it was developed in 2008, so I was not on the planning board then, but it's a little quirky.
Well, it probably changes over time too.
No, it's,
Water shedding in.
well, we have that map. Or, you know, it's on one of those things and it shows what's in and what's out. So I think coming up with something that you can hang your hat on so that, because especially because membership is, you know, people want to have their voices. You know, you want to know, are you in, are you out? You got counted as this or that. So figuring out whether it's a FERCog definition or if you live on this road or, you know, however it is, I think it just, the clarity would be good.
Work on defining it, I think, or mapping it out.
You see,
Yeah.
just maybe,
That's important about watershed definition. FERCog does have the definition of the Lake Wyola water. Watershed technically is all the water that drains from a certain point to another point. So someone living in the typical Lake Wyola watershed could be far from the lake, but impacts from their property could directly impact the lake. So using the FERCog definition of watershed, which is the land area that drains to the lake, is really effective. It's convoluted because it goes like this, but if you use the map, would be very effective anytime. And I think appropriate.
I would just say, for stormwater mitigation, that makes a lot of sense. You're talking about recreational use, community use, people who are on the lake, nearby the lake. Not sure that the FERC definition of formal watershed would be so effective. I think they're slightly different functions than stormwater committee and what this committee is supposed to be doing. So I don't know if maybe the planning district is, the definition or whatever, but I sense that the mandate or the mission of this committee is slightly different than stormwater mitigation. So, hey, I don't want to make it redundant.
I was going to piggyback on what you just said, Kate, because if you look at your purpose and mission, there are 4 charges that this commission would have. But they're all related to Lake Loyola. They're not related to the Lake Loyola watershed, which is a whole different area that you have to think about. So if you're going to change in any way the involvement of the watershed as primary, then I think you need to look at your purpose and mission and probably change that. Because yes, these areas that, bringing in silt to the lake, that's affecting Lake Loyola, which is the last resort, is where it's going. But technically, your mission statement is talking about Lake Loyola. And it's also in your title. So I don't know, I think it's a little bit of a gray area in that we're looking at things in a broader sense. And I think Jen's new committee is going to be paramount in working with LMAX to prevent any of this silt and things from coming into the lake. So they have their own mission, whereas this committee has a very different mission. I mean, safety. That's a different thing than anything we think that mitigation groups are doing. So there's
Also, if you did it based on the planning board district, would be, I don't know, I think an appropriate nod to even the original intent of the committee going back all those years.
I was advocating for it.
You weren't?
Well, I think your staff, I was surprised. There's some people that are mostly, like distance that are not part of the district and others that are on the other end. So I think you could do it. I tend to think of the watershed from a ecological perspective makes a lot of sense because what's upstream comes into the lake and if the environmental and infiltration is a complete solution, that makes a lot of sense. I just think it has to be fun, whether it's FERCog's definition or whatever. Or, you could just say these roads, one of the things I was thinking about from planning board, because we're looking at hopefully revisiting the districts and how they're defined. It could be distance from the lake, like literally, how many hundreds of feet from the lake, as the crow flies. It's not an ecological one, but it's this one. If they're about, but whatever it is, I think figuring out a definition that people can hang their hat on is important.
We have a planning
Well,
map that would have a disc.
yeah, he
Yeah.
just pointed to one right here. There's a few maps in there. But there's another consideration too, which I think is just like your practical day-to-day operation. I think definitions are important and you could certainly pick any number of definitions to fit that. But I think it's just important to reiterate that like the membership is only a part of the story. And part of the story is like public feedback sessions, which I think will tell a great deal of information. And so those would be open, widely. So I don't know, I think as specific, you can get as specific as you want to, but I think practically speaking, you could just say within the Lake Wyola area. That's what I've leave it a little open because you're gonna have hopefully a cross section of people, and you're going to be hearing from different people, and you'll be hearing from the Stormwater Committee, which will give you also input into the watershed. And again, if we go back to a 1-year appointment, that gives you a chance to say, hey, maybe we do need to be more specific. So you've already built yourself in that piece towards the end.
Yeah, I just took it out of the community residents. We do use the watershed a couple of times in the scope and in the community engagement. I think it's appropriate there. Anyway, just saying, I think it's appropriate to use it there. And I think we changed that 3 residents to property owners within the Lake Wyola area. And then, what do you think? Eric or Tim?
Because we'll also be, the standard application process that's mentioned here is for folks to fill out an application form, which is available on our website. And also to meet with either myself, or sometimes if I'm not available, I'll ask Brennan to do it. And it's just like like no more than 15 minutes, or I'll try to be. But yeah, just to kind of talk about what are your interests and what makes you excited about serving the town, and what kind of perspectives are you going to get, and like what's your background. And then I give all that information to you all, and then you can look at that, or if you have more questions, you can always ask someone. So not that I want to dissuade you one certain way, but there are, I think, different steps along the process where you'll get kind of an insight into who might be part of it.
Sorry, I don't have, this is Anna Mancebo. I don't have a hand icon on my, let me know when I can ask a question. I apologize for interrupting.
No, you can. Go ahead.
With all that's been discussed, do we need to have Donna, our town council, review this? I know, a lot of people are downplaying this, but it sounds very involved here, and there are a lot of opinions. And I have a foreshadowing of this. And I'm wondering if the select board specifically thinks it's a good idea that we maybe have Donna Nichols' eyes on this. That's my question.
I don't know that she's looked over our charges before.
I'll certainly defer to you guys, but
Yeah, I don't
this
think
is,
she has.
I've drafted several committee charges for you in the past. This is pretty standard policy if you want me to do that, but it's not always my first inclination, because that does incur a cost to the town.
Right.
Legal counsel is not free. But if that's what you would like, I can certainly do that. But this is a pretty standard, I don't want to say boilerplate, because it is specific to different needs in the community, but
It's structured similarly.
it's structured very similarly to the police chief search committee meeting and the stormwater committee, and there might be a couple other ones, but the basic format is the same, where it's a scope.
Yeah, all the lake boating safety.
I didn't do that one.
Oh, no, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that was the lake boating safety we didn't have her look over.
I think it's really specifically because FERCog's involved in, you keep mentioning FERCog, the definition of what the watershed is versus the lake, to Charlene's point. And I just think it is a little different, to be honest with you. And I understand that involving legal counsel involves money. But I think my advice is that you possibly have legal counsel review this, because there are a lot of different opinions and definitions, et cetera, that could be far reaching as we get involved more with FERCog.
You want to say something?
I just think in the original ad hoc. LWAC. That doesn't have any clarity on that topic, right?
Oh, it was very not.
Right?
Not particularly.
I mean, I think that's really what we're trying to do here with this particular item, is to get a makeup representative from that same group of people.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think
And
what I'm hearing here is more how there's a map that graphs this area that is pretty clear, and that seems like that's pretty consistent with what LWAC has been in the past.
Yeah, the 1991 charge is on the table if anyone wants a copy of it, and it's on our website. It just refers to it as the Lake Wyola area or area environment, so it doesn't really get more specific than that. And to Anna's point, I don't know necessarily that we would be directly involving FERCog in the operations.
Now, and Anna, to your point, FERCog is enmeshed in our town in a lot of ways.
Yes.
We use them at
Yeah,
every point of
yeah.
decision making and contract negotiation for everything. So we already have an established relationship with FERCog, and a lot of this would just be calling them up and asking them for a list here or there, or so we're already enmeshed with them. At
Okay,
all
I just
facets
wanted
of
to
town
raise
government.
it.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
I do appreciate the suggestion. I think Donna hasn't looked at our charges, any that I've been on the select board with. I don't think she's looked at any of them.
I don't think so.
The deal on the select board.
No.
But I do appreciate the suggestion.
But Haley, you're gonna go through and list
Yeah,
all
give
the
us what our,
things that we've
you've
changed.
been tracking our.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I
And do
forgot
that.
I said that.
I'm tracked, some of them,
Um,
but mine I would not rely 100% on.
Yeah, so the things that I've heard, we're including just some specific details. Speaking of FERCog, from the FERCog that they have recommended that we do for water quality testing or testing. Testing. I have also heard that the select.
Are you talking about monitoring it or?
Talking about monitoring.
And maybe if anybody else doing it, we have to add to the budget for them to be able to do that.
They have, don't they? Doesn't LWAC have money for water testing?
There is budget money already in our budget for water quality testing. And certainly that could be a recommendation from the committee is who's going to do the actual testing. So other things that I know for sure that I've heard the select board say you're amenable to would be on the second page where it says routine feedback sessions, striking everything before the first comma. So then that sentence would read, routine public feedback sessions, the LWAC shall convene, et cetera, et cetera. Further down on page 2, under community residents, where it says 3 residents or property owners within the Lake Wyola watershed area appointed, blah, 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 we would get rid of everything after the comma. So that section would just read 3 residents or property owners within the Lake Wyola area. Maybe still to be determined, but that's what I've heard so far. I have heard,
The one up above is his and her. Did you?
oh yeah, sorry, yeah, and then a friendly amendment to remove his and her and just say or designee. Under terms and appointment authority, just adding one sentence that says committee reappointments are subject to select board approval. And I believe what I heard was that you were also amenable to getting rid of citizens and maybe just putting in residents, which would be consistent with the other kind of terms that we've used thus far in the.
Yeah, you should read. Yeah, okay. There was one thing I think
Did I miss something?
under operations and community engagement, I don't know that we had talked about this, was a suggestion to put routine joint meetings.
Oh, yes, for a
with
number of
at
times.
least, and I put blank times a year.
So that did come up. I know, Tom, you had mentioned that. You can certainly do that. That might be something where you just want that to work out in practice, where if we say you got to meet 3 times, but it's really hard for people to make 3 different meetings,
Yeah.
that might be an undue burden.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that for a couple of things. I think the committees, both committees, because you're dealing with 2 committees here, they know best when they need to meet.
Or how they can.
And I don't think we need to dictate now.
Yep.
How that happens,
Oh.
my opinion.
No,
Yeah.
good opinion.
I agree with that.
And yeah, and there were some other things, but those are the ones that I had remembered you all were like, okay, we like that.
Okay. So question for the select board, do we, with these amendments that Haley just outlined, do we feel comfortable voting on this tonight with those amendments as Haley has described? Or the other option is having them made one last run through and voting it at our next meeting? regular select board meeting.
I would go with that one myself personally.
Option two.
Option two.
So
Wait,
having Haley make the
make sure that we
adjustments,
get all the
let us get
corrections in there.
another set of eyes on that, like final draft, and then voting, which is next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right,
Come up.
right? I
Yeah,
think it's
right,
next
right.
Tuesday, right?
Okay.
Hold on, just double check.
You're right.
So then my ask,
Next Tuesday.
you guys would just be, do you have a sense of how specific you want lake watershed, lake area? Do you have a sense of how specific you want that, or do you want a couple different options? You want to choose à la carte, or do you
Yeah.
have something in mind?
It sounds like, my, what I gleaned from the conversation about the FERCog is that it's a wider, broader spectrum because it feeds the lake,
Yes.
right? And that the planning board one is a little more is narrowed, for that, those
Yeah.
purposes.
We could also look at just X amount of distance, pick an epicenter point, maybe middle of the lake, and what's the, circumference
radius,
around that.
yeah.
Radius.
Or circumference. No, you're right. Circumference.
I personally kind of like the idea of using the FERCog just because
The larger.
it's a larger area. So it's just going to draw people from a bigger area and who all have an interest in the water quality of the lake because they're dumping water into the lake.
Aren't they, isn't that being addressed, that issue, that the water,
Stormwater.
water issue quality being addressed with this other committee?
The stormwater.
Stormwater.
Yeah.
I get you, Jen, you'd be a good, hear from you on that.
And it is.
Yeah.
I think the question is, you're trying to attract.
Mhm.
So it's like, are the people who are being, so we have 3 residents of this area and what happens where they live impacts the lake. So that's one thing, so if we say the Lake Wyola area, that kind of does the same thing, but it's probably a smaller area. So if you're trying to go out from micro level of, immediately around the lake, to the watershed area, to the district, which is a little wider than that, to the watershed area, which is wider than that, and then the community at large. It's about where do you want to draw the members from to serve your mission.
And go ahead, Faith, and I have a slight.
Sorry, I have not introduced myself before, and I made another comment. I'm Katie Borders, rather than, actually. You have 3 members at large and another non-resident. This is like people closer to the lake. I totally agree with the issues on race and others that watershed was a vague to me, how, although I appreciate what really saying you were thinking of it in the colloquial use. You might just want to go back to the original, part of the other, the prior Wyola area. But if you want to, anyway, I'm just saying that you want it broad, we want it diverse, but you do want people right around there in terms of the diversity of, experience of being around the lake. So anyway, that's just.
Well, and here's the thing I was thinking of too, was what happens if we get 2 applications that are like close and one that's further out, but we've defined it, and that third one can fulfill within, what happens if we have a lack of
Lack
applicants?
of
right?
applications.
Yeah,
Get applications.
right. So maybe that's something as the appointees that we figure out that and see the applications that come in,
You could do that. Let me come up with a couple different options and
Okay.
yeah, it's good. I think options are always good. And maybe I'll look at 2, like I said, this is not like Shrewsbury is really unique. I'm not going to pretend that it's not, but there are other communities that have similar kind of dynamics and issues. So like I said, I had looked at for non-residents, some communities on the Cape, because that's a huge issue. There's always that, like, I'm a local and this is your second home. That's a big Cape dynamic. Not, but it can be. So let me look at that. There might be some other models that we can use where they look more closely at like what constitutes this type of
An area.
resident or community area.
There's a question.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just, when I was looking for a list of people around the area, you go to your tax collector's office and say, I want to Lake Wyola area, they have a very structured list to say, here's what we include in the Lake Wyola.
The assessor does too. Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's already done, so
Right.
it's like we do it from year to year and year to year, and this is how we define it.
And while you're looking, maybe ask Leslie what the assessor defines as,
Just to throw,
or
some-
a third other thing in there. Yeah.
throw something else out in the mix here. One of the things we're trying to do here is we're transitioning from
Ad hoc.
from an ad hoc committee to this new committee. And one of the things we're going to do is we're trying to do here with this one section, this community residence section, is to capture that group of people that was in the original.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I think that's what we want to make sure we
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
with this, however we define it. However, LWAC defined it originally, it should probably be close to what that definition is today.
It was
With the-
very, very vague. Yeah,
Well, yeah, very vague.
it was very vague.
Brennan, do you mind putting up the original on the screen?
Doesn't even say who.
Uh,
5 numbers.
the who is on the, I think on page,
Yeah.
on the first page.
Page,
Yeah.
last paragraph.
Last paragraph. Oh, sorry, I meant the original.
Was the next?
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, just to Jim's point, I think don't want to go back to that. Because that's exactly the problem. So, and what it says here in. So,
I think he means the area, just as late.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I think
very
going back to the White Railroad Association. Membership is, we're going all the way back. Well, I think what you're speaking to is. People who have some proximity to the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have knowledge and interest, and I think balancing that with ad hoc. Community members, that are at large, that there's a balance.
Yeah, I'm just talking about this community.
Definition.
Third one. Yeah. Just the third one. That should be a mix of similar representation from the original.
I think that, my sense, what I advocated for last time, we would still advocate is three at large with anyone who lives in Tewksbury.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So that's the.
Hold on.
Viola area, see.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go back up to the first page, Brennan, that's where they say it. You can see that was in the original.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Lake Violet.
the third section, the first bullet. In the third section. These are what we're really talking about here, to define that geography. The community residence. The first bullet of the community residence.
Okay.
I'm just focused on that one bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different options we've heard, you could look at the assessor map, you could look at the planning districts, you could look at for HOG and, there's different options there. Thanks, Brennan, I think that's good.
And then when we get the applications, who we've got
Yeah.
that wants to be on the committee or reapply for the committee and such.
Yeah, you look at. Just talk about the geography here. Talk,
yeah.
maybe looking at 3 different scenarios. I
Yeah,
guess my point is we should try to. Limit the scenario to the one that represents the
The
original,
best, yeah.
just for that one bullet.
Yeah, it's definitely, well, this one just says the lake area, which,
maybe a map would be helpful.
Yeah,
We could get a visual aid
yeah.
for the next meeting about like what it would.
Planning
be
board, you must
to
have
be
map,
Part of
right?
a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right here.
It's the pink one over there, right? It's the pink area,
Thank you.
That,
I think.
yeah, and we could juxtapose that with like what the scientific watershed
Watershed
definition is.
Oh. You have those scanned, right, Michael? Well, maybe have you send us one, whichever one you think is the planning board one.
I found it educational, like I
Okay.
think seeing what was out.
So
Okay, so I guess that's where we're at. We will close the meeting finish by saying, Haley will, have the task of putting those edits and amendments together, sending us a draft, and then have it on our next agenda and map, and using your map skills.
Yeah.
That you will develop. Learn. And then go from there, right? And then vote on it at our next meeting. Sound good?
Sounds
You too?
perfect.
Okay. Right, so I think with that, do we hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
Tucker,
Walter and I.
Make peace, O'Neill. Thank you,
Aye.
everybody.
I.
Thank you for coming.